While the ice hid the past, a 1947 armada went looking for something else entirely. Operation Highjump's shadow. While the ice kept its own counsel, Washington assembled ships. A lot of ships. In late 1946, the U.S. Navy launched Operation Highjump, Task Force 68, 13 ships, over 4,000 men, aircraft, tractors, fuel, and orders to establish the Antarctic research base Little America 4. That was the brochure version. In the classified annexes, the tone was sharper. Cold weather combat readiness, logistics under polar conditions, and aerial mapping on an unprecedented scale. World War II had just ended. The next one already had a name. The poles looked like flanks on a globe that might heat up fast. Stakes were layered. Publicly, it was science and flags. Privately, the Navy wanted to know how steel behaved in katabatic winds, how radios carried over ice, and how far heavy aircraft could fly over a magnetic wild zone where compasses spun. If they learned something first, they controlled the conversation. If they met something unexpected, they wanted guns nearby. Action started from the sea ice off the Ross Sea. Admiral Richard E. Byrd, already a polar celebrity, rode shotgun with Rear Admiral Richard Cruzen, who ran the task force. 3 groups fanned out. The central group for base construction, the eastern and western groups for recon flights and mapping. The flight plans read like stitching a quilt. Out and back arcs, altitude holds, film canisters pre-labeled for rapid cataloging. They planned months. They got weeks. Here's where stories split. The official summaries talk weather, storms, whiteouts, refrozen leads that trapped ships, propellers icing thick as armor. The logs confirm nasty days. But then you see radio silence windows, scheduled and unscheduled, where a flood of transmissions goes thin. One pilot's diary, later archived, mentions ground speeds inconsistent with headwinds and target of interest, noted without coordinates. A maintenance officer logged stress cracks on a wing route after high-speed air that didn't match the throttle settings. His entry was stamped, duplicated, and filed away. Meanwhile, rumors bred in the gaps. Chilean and Argentine press picked up fragments from mess halls. Fast craft skimming water, radar spikes appearing, then gone. Sailors exaggerate. But back in the States, Admiral Byrd stopped in Chile for an interview often cited by enthusiasts. He reportedly told El Mercurio that the United States should be prepared against enemies that could attack this country from pole to pole with incredible speed. Historians argue context. Byrd often talked about strategic air power, and the exact phrasing is debated. But the words welded onto mysteries from the same weeks. Stakes climbed when men died. 3 airmen in a PBM Mariner were lost when their aircraft crashed into the Ross Ice Shelf during a training flight. The wreckage was recovered. The cause was listed as weather and mechanical failure. Over the radio, some crew accounts mentioned a flare before the descent. Weather leaves flares, or sensors do, right before they fail. In the aftermath, flight schedules tightened, and some search arcs were pulled. What nobody knew outside the task force, mapping sorties flew over zones where modern satellites now glitch. Not many, but enough to itch. The aerial photographs, thousands of frames, were eventually broken into mosaics. A few reels were classified for technical reasons, which could mean anything from sensor calibration to resolution that might reveal capabilities. Years later, the National Archives would show missing canisters in an otherwise neat numerical run. This was the moment everything changed. Mission duration shrank. Highjump had planned for 6 to 8 months. The main force turned home in under 3. Officially, the weather cut the season. Unofficially, ships had supply issues, hull strain, and crew fatigue. None of that is scandal. Antarctica eats plans. Still, the speed of the drawdown gave traction to those who thought something pushed them. Impact rippled across the Cold War. The Navy folded what it learned into Arctic strategies, and the Air Force took polar routes seriously. A classified post-mission review flagged unknowns in magnetic and radio propagation conditions and recommended dedicated research into high-latitude anomalies. Funding followed. Meanwhile, a quiet, practical detail. A handful of the men rotated into later polar projects with NATO ties, focused on communications and early warning systems. If they saw something odd, they would have had language to hide it. Interference, ducting, propagation. A micro-story held by a mechanic's family surfaced decades later. He brought home a photo. Nothing dramatic, just a frozen horizon with a low, sharp peak that looked too exact. He said, "We banked twice. They told us not to shoot the third pass." The print disappeared in a basement flood. Memory stayed. Maybe it was a noon attack with clean lines. Maybe it was something else. Either way, the order not to look again hooks the brain. What's withheld demands attention. Meanwhile, in the Southern Hemisphere press, the bird, quote, metastasized into myths about flying discs. Authors grafted later UFO lore onto Highjump's timeline. Fact check. No verified Navy document mentions craft beyond known aircraft. But the narrative didn't need verification, just empty spaces to pour into. Those spaces grew when pieces of the aerial survey never reached public eyes. What matters for our trail is this: Highjump established a pattern. Go south with a scientific story. Collect hard data. Filter it through security when it overlaps with strategic interests. Withdraw early if the cost-benefit tilts. The result can look like a scramble, even if it's just caution in a lethal environment. Or it can look like you saw something you didn't want to explain. In the aftermath, Byrd returned for Operation Deep Freeze, the prelude to the International Geophysical Year, and the talk got quieter. Deeper budgets, tighter comms, better covers. Decades later, satellites would see more than ships ever could. And some of the places those cameras can't seem to hold focus on. They rhyme with flight arcs drawn in pencil by men who came home early, said little, and kept a few photos in drawers they never opened twice. The images NASA won't explain. Satellites don't blink. People do. That's why the first clue wasn't a missing picture. It was a pattern of absences that kept returning to the same latitude and longitude, season after season, platform after platform. Public-facing mosaics stitched from MODIs and Landsat started showing seams, thin zipper lines where white should meet white, except the stitches slid right over coordinates we already flagged from flight arcs and thermal quirks. On some days, the tile just wasn't there. Not a black square, not a corrupted hash, just a tidy patch of no data that overlapped a zone that never lacked coverage before. A glaciologist out of Christchurch tried to wave it off. Polar night, oblique angles, bandwidth juggling. Fair points. But independent archivists watching the feeds noticed something weirder. The replacement tiles that eventually appeared bore different time tags than the surrounding swath, as if a later pass had been dropped in to patch the hole. Snow dunes don't jump between frames like that. In one set, the sastrugi ran east, west. In the patched tile, they ran northeast. Wind can twist patterns, but not between adjacent moments on the same day. Meanwhile, in the thermal bands, small blooms pulsed under the plateau. NOAA's public servers carry MODI's land surface temperature maps. Antarctica's interior should sit at a flat, brutal cold. Instead, you'd get a soft, rounded warm spot. Half a degree here, 3/4 there, smeared by the sensor resolution but consistent enough to show up across weeks. Geothermal heat can explain isolated plumes, sure. But these pulses showed a cadence, appearing on 3-day intervals, tapering, then returning. Nature does rhythm. It doesn't do maintenance windows. Synthetic aperture radar complicated the story. Sarsi's texture through clouds and dark. ESA's Sentinel. One passes, when you line them up, revealed backscatter changes along a line we later started calling the grid. Regular spacing, faint but repeating, like a cross-hatched bite into the ice's echo. Public products show some of it. The higher-res stuff sits behind sign-ups and institutional firewalls, and even there, you'll hear researchers grumble about tasking conflicts over that exact sector. Commercial providers advertise broad Antarctic coverage. Zoom in far enough on the problem zone, and the server times out. What nobody told you in the glossy brochures is that ice-penetrating radar flown by national programs doesn't always make it to open archives. Airborne campaigns by Operation Icebridge left flight tracks right over the coordinates with gaps in the final public release. A footnote explains quality control, removals, and instrument anomalies. That happens, but pull the raw flight logs and you'll read fuel burn rates. That imply more time on station than the posted tracks show. The plane loitered. The data vanished. Stakes are simple and ugly. Whoever controls the sky controls the narrative. NASA publishes for science. The Department of Defense can task satellites for security. The Antarctic Treaty says research is open. National programs carve out exceptions. When public-facing maps keep swallowing the same patch, you don't need a villain monologue. You need root cause analysis and someone who'll keep receipts. A micro-story landed in the inbox of a small forum moderator. He ran a thread cataloging Antarctic mosaics. One night, his post showing a tile glitch went viral. 12 hours later, the link broke, not just on his mirror, but on the original NASA-hosted tile. He reposted with cached copies, his account rate limited, then flagged for coordinated inauthentic behavior. He wasn't a bot. He was an engineer on leave who knew how to read metadata. He sent a last note. It's not the missing image. It's that it keeps missing. Architects of satellites will tell you this. Orbiters don't like edges. The poles force weird angles and tight timelines. Stitch errors happen. But when errors happen over exactly the same polygon that also shows thermal pulses and faint SAR structure, you're past coincidence and into policy. That's when you go hunt the off-ramps, the places where public data quietly diverges from restricted feeds. According to a contractor who worked ground segment software, a set of Antarctic masks was pushed during a routine back-end update. They were supposed to blank sea ice ship locations to protect research vessels from interference. One mask overlapped the interior by a few dozen kilometers. He filed a bug. The mask stayed. Weeks later, the justification label changed from vessel protection to calibration exclusion. Same polygon. Meanwhile, the infrared story deepened. A university team with a grant to study subglacial hydrology requested higher cadence thermal snapshots for a tiny rectangle near the dome sea sector. They got 2 deliveries. Then their tasking slot was bumped by national priority. When their PI complained, the liaison suggested pivoting to a different basin with equivalent scientific value. Translation: look anywhere but here. In the aftermath of the blackout night, those thermal blooms jumped by 0.7 of a degree. The public map updated, then rolled back the anomaly 1 revision later. If you weren't watching minute to minute, you'd never know. But people were watching. Screenshots proliferated, threads got throttled, and a pattern emerged. Post, spike, replace, explain, forget. The images didn't scream city. They whispered persistence. And for anyone listening, the whisper was enough to keep digging. The pyramid problem. While the images blinked, a mountain kept staring back. East of the Ellsworths, a tri-faced peak cut from snow like a logo, clean lines, sharp ridges, shadows that met at angles too tidy for a continent that sandblasts everything into curves. The internet crowned it a pyramid. Scientists called it a nunatak, bedrock poking through the ice. Both statements could be true. The fight wasn't about a picture. It was about proportions. Stakes are simple. If that geometry is engineered, you're looking at capability far older, or stranger, than our textbooks allow. If it's natural, then why do the datasets around it act like someone's guarding a door? Either way, people get pulled in. Careers tilt on how they answer. Action started with coordinates. 79 degrees 58 minutes south, 81 degrees 57 minutes west. One of several pyramids, flagged by armchair sleuths and a few quiet pros who didn't post under real names. At first glance, it's just an arête, the windward ridges stripped clean, slopes faceted by freeze-thaw. But run a crude photogrammetry from stereo pairs, and you get faces with plane fits within a couple degrees across hundreds of meters. Nature can do facets. Glacial quarrying loves straight lines. The question is the regularity. In 3 separate datasets, Landsat, Aster, and a commercial pass, edge angles clustered around 60 to 62 degrees. That's not proof of intent. It's a pattern worth not laughing at. Counterpoints came fast. Geology doesn't care about our love for triangles. Nunataks can wear chisels and pretend to be architecture. Pareidolia is ancient and undefeated. A veteran geomorphologist sent a thread-long takedown. Granite plus frost plus prevailing winds equals symmetry. Go outside. He's not wrong. But then an architect wrote back with a load table. At that height and wind profile, a human-built pyramid would need terracing or internal bracing to resist ice creep and gusts. He wasn't arguing it was artificial. He was showing that, if it were, the engineering would be non-trivial, which keeps the question alive. What nobody posted publicly was an off-record email from a glaciologist who'd flown LiDAR along a nearby ridge. It was 2 lines long. You're not wrong about the grid. Don't put my name on this. Attached was a crop of a backscatter map with faint, repeating lows crossing under the pyramid like a buried lattice. Could be crevasse trains aligned to stress fields. Could be a coincidence of sastrugi and radar angle. Or it could be what it looked like, straight elements at regular spacing under a mountain that looked too perfect. A microstory slid in from a field engineer at Union Glacier. One night, he walked out to fix a sensor cage. Windless, cold like a hammer. He leaned against an aluminum panel and felt a slow, low tone buzzing through it, like standing near a diesel engine that never turned over. He went back inside, logged it, and the entry vanished after a software patch. He shrugged. The tone stayed in his teeth for an hour. Meanwhile, SER passes picked up something subtle on the leeward face. Seasonal changes in backscatter that didn't match snowfall. The texture shifted in bands, as if a skin grew and sloughed in discrete layers. A geophysicist offered an elegant explanation, rhyme cycles stacking and shedding. Then he added a sentence that stuck. The banding is unusually even for this elevation. Evenness is a cousin of intention. It doesn't prove anything. It makes you look again. Impact hit the comment sections first. The pyramid became a meme, then a punching bag, then a test. Post the picture, and you got clipped by fact-check labels. Post the data, the angle fits, the SAR bands, and your reach cratered. Meanwhile, quietly, a pair of engineers ran finite element models on ice creep around a faceted obstacle. Their conclusion: if something underneath had planes at those angles, the overlying ice would facet in harmony over time. Translation: you could be looking at a natural rock wearing a geometric mask, or a geometric structure wearing a natural coat. Architects weighed in on feasibility. Could you build a pyramid there? The answer came with caveats. Wind scour would carve, snow would fill, but a hollow shell with internal buttressing and a surface designed to self-shed could survive if it used the environment, not fought it. The materials? Stone is heavy to lift. Ice is plentiful but creeps. Metal prints too strongly on radar. The clever answer is composite, layers that look like geology to our instruments, tuned to the cold. Stakes sharpened when a climber posted a cropped selfie with that peak in the far distance. The caption joked about the alien summer home. 2 days later, his post lost likes by the thousand. He messaged the page admin. We were told not to approach that ridge due to crevasse risk. Then the risk map changed mid-season. Safety dictates change. But the polygon they blocked mirrored the rectangle our thermal map kept losing. This was the moment everything quieted. A research team filed a request for a ground-penetrating radar traverse near the site. Denied environmental sensitivity. A week later, a logistics flight filed a non-standard manifest for heavy crates destined southwest sector. The manifest redacted the final coordinates. If this is only geology, the choreography is elaborate. So we hold two truths in the same cold light. Antarctica can carve illusions that look like intent, and intent can wear Antarctica like a disguise. Geometry alone won't answer identity. But when geometry sits on top of heat, hum, and a grid that shouldn't exist, the picture stops being a meme and starts becoming a map. Geometry is one clue. What's humming under the ice is another. The signal beneath Lake Vostok. To understand the hum that kept slipping through the noise, we have to stand on a wind-scraped plateau called Vostok Station. Soviet-built, later Russian-run, with French collaboration, perched above a lake no human had touched. The ice here is thick enough to hold time in a vice. Drilling began in the late 1980s, stopped, resumed, and stopped again as the arguments got louder. Get to the water, but don't poison it with kerosene, freon, or microbes that never evolved for this place. International oversight got teeth. Every meter down meant another round of permission slips. While the headlines focused on contamination, the instruments talked in whispers.